I walked into the room one night and caught my wife in the act with another man. But what followed was so much worse than I ever imagined. Standing in a dimly lit room, my expression is a blend of anger, confusion, and pain. A lingering silence fills the room. 2.5 months ago, my life changed in ways I never saw coming. Everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and trust was shattered in a single moment. It was a normal Tuesday night, or so I thought. I came home after a long day, expecting to relax and unwind, maybe catch up with my wife Sarah, who I thought was just in the living room. Instead, I walked into the room to find her, my wife, the mother of my children, in a passionate embrace with another man. My heart dropped. I stood there, frozen. I didn't know what to do. It felt like that time had stopped. There they were, Sarah, 33, and Jake, a guy I had met earlier that evening at a small gathering. He was one of the friends I invited over for drinks. I noticed how flirtatious he was, but I dismissed it. It was nothing, I thought, just some guy being overly confident. But at that moment, I realized it wasn't anything. It was everything. I don't remember what I said when I walked in. I just remember how Sarah looked at me, wide-eyed, startled, but also guilty. My stomach twisted. She quickly jumped off of him, trying to cover herself up. But there was no covering up what had just happened, no avoiding the truth. I stood there, feeling like my world was crumbling around me. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just turned and left. My heart couldn't process what I had seen. How could this happen? I loved her. She was my best friend. The woman I had been with for 18 years. The one I had promised to always stand by, no matter what. But in that moment, it felt like the life we built together was a complete lie. I went to stay with a friend for the next week, away from our home. During that time, I saw a divorce lawyer. We had always said if something like this happened, we were done. There would be no going back. But as I sat in that lawyer's office, I realized something I hadn't expected. I still loved her. I couldn't imagine my life without her. What about the kids? My 12-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son would be devastated if we split up. What about the house? We had just bought a new home, one we'd spent years dreaming about. Could I just walk away from it all? After that week, I made the decision to go back. Not for her at first, but for the kids. I thought if we could somehow fix things, if I could just push through the pain, maybe we could still make it work. So I came home. But Sarah, she didn't seem to understand the gravity of what had happened. She seemed to think we could just brush it under the rug like it was some minor issue we could forget about. I tried to be patient. I tried to communicate, to be understanding. But every time I brought it up, every time I tried to talk about what I had seen, Sarah shut down. She would brush me off, tell me it was a mistake, that it was nothing. It wasn't worth ruining our family over. But I couldn't just move on. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I started breaking down often. It would happen late at night after the kids had gone to bed. I'd go into the bathroom, close the door, and cry. I cried in the shower, sitting on the floor, my head in my hands. I felt like I had lost everything. I couldn't understand how she could do this to me. How could she betray me like that? And it wasn't just the infidelity that hurt. It was the complete lack of remorse. She didn't seem to get how much she had hurt me. I needed her to acknowledge the pain she caused, but instead, she minimized it. It was just a physical affair, she said. It wasn't anything, but it was everything. It was a betrayal of the deepest kind. For a while, I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. But every time I touched her, I thought of him. Every time she laughed or smiled, I saw the memory of her in his arms. I couldn't shake it. After weeks of turmoil, something inside me broke. I had to know the truth. I couldn't keep living in this fog of uncertainty. So I lied to her. I told Sarah I had spoken to him and that he had told me everything. I watched her face go pale, and for the first time since it all happened, I saw real fear in her eyes. She broke down. She finally confessed to what I had been suspecting all along. They had slept together multiple times, 4 or 5 times. But the worst part? It had happened while I was waiting for her in the car. I had driven her to his house thinking she was just picking up some pot for us. I thought I was being a good husband. But what I didn't know was that she was inside, making love to him. I couldn't breathe. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I had been so blind. I had been driving her to cheat on me. I had been waiting in that car, completely unaware that she was betraying me just feet away. As if that wasn't bad enough, the lies kept coming. Sarah swore it was always protected. She promised it never happened in our bed or at our house, but then more lies spilled out. She told me it had also happened at our house while the kids were at school. I felt sick to my stomach. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me so completely? I had always trusted her. We had built a life together, one that I thought was strong and unshakable. But now, everything was in ruins. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Even worse, Sarah's excuses were starting to wear thin. She blamed me for her actions, saying I had pushed her away. She told me she felt worthless, and that I didn't appreciate her. It was my fault, she said. It's always my fault. But no matter what she said, the truth was clear. She had made a choice. She had chosen him. She had betrayed me. And the more she tried to justify it, the more I felt like I was losing myself. I don't know what to do anymore. Every day feels like a battle. I want to believe in her. I want to believe we can make it through this. But I can't shake the feeling that she'll do it again. I can't forget what I saw. I can't forget the lies. I love her. I do. But I also don't know if I can ever trust her again. What if this happens again? What if I stay, only to be hurt? Again? Can I live with the constant fear that she's cheating on me? If you've ever been through this, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved and trusted, I want to hear from you. How did you handle it? Did you move on? Did you find a way to rebuild your trust? Or did you walk away? Leave a comment below and share your story. You're not alone in this. And if this story resonates with you, hit like, share, and subscribe. Let's build a community of support. No one should have to go through this alone. We grew up in the same apartment building, our families intertwined by years of friendship. Layla and I were inseparable, at least on the outside. As kids, we were always together, laughing, playing, and sharing moments that should have bound us for life. But beneath the surface, there was a subtle, unspoken rivalry. I could never escape the feeling that Layla always had something that I didn't. She was the one who excelled in everything, the perfect student, the perfect athlete, the perfect daughter. It was as if she could do no wrong. While I was content with just being good enough, she was always pushing boundaries and achieving things that seemed impossible. I could feel it at home too. My parents adored her. I loved her. But the constant praise she received made me feel invisible. I couldn't help but wonder, why wasn't I the one getting the spotlight? Why did they shower her with so much affection and admiration, while I got only fragments of it? When we both got into the top college in the country, I thought this would be my moment to shine. But the celebration wasn't for me. It was for Layla. She was ranked number 2 in the country, and that was enough to steal the thunder. My parents threw a lavish party to honor her, but I was left standing on the sidelines. I was proud of her, but the sting of being overshadowed still burned deep inside me. Why wasn't I enough? But despite all of this, she never saw me as competition. She loved me in a way that no one else did. At 17, she told me she loved me, and my heart fluttered with the hope that maybe we could finally be something more than friends. At 23, we married, and I thought we had the perfect life. It was a Thursday evening when everything started to fall apart. The weather was warmer than usual, and I had just come back from work. The smell of dinner wafted through the apartment, but something felt off. I went out on the balcony to smoke, a habit I had picked up in college to cope with stress. That's when I heard her. Layla's voice was coming from inside our bedroom. She was talking to someone. No, arguing with someone. My heart stopped in my chest. I leaned in closer to the window, trying to make out the words. "We should end this. It's wrong. I love my husband. Don't call me again." I froze, the cigarette falling from my hand. My stomach churned. My mind raced. What is happening? Who is she talking to? I couldn't breathe. I tried to calm myself down. It's nothing. Maybe she's just talking to a friend. It's all in your head. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. She left for the gym shortly after. Layla always left her phone behind when she went, a habit she had developed after we got married. But this time, the temptation was too strong. I grabbed her phone, my hands trembling. As I unlocked her phone and began scrolling through the messages, I felt like the ground beneath me had vanished. There it was, plain as day. She had been texting Yusuf, a guy from high school. He was handsome, charming, and completely clueless about anything other than himself. But now, in hindsight, I realized I had underestimated him. They had been in contact for a month, their conversations progressing from harmless to dangerously intimate. She had reached out to him about some photos he had taken at a school event. The messages started off innocent, just small talk about photography. But soon, things escalated. They met up a few times without my knowledge. One of those times they kissed. The words in the chat were enough to rip my heart out. The more I read, the angrier I got. Layla had been hiding this from me for a month. How could she? How could she do this to us? To me? I couldn't bear it any longer. I quickly wrote a note, my hands shaking as I scribbled my feelings down. I want a divorce. How could you do this to me? I left the note on top of her phone, the very phone that had revealed her betrayal, and walked out of the apartment, feeling numb. I went to my parents' house, desperate for comfort. I thought they'd understand, that they'd take my side. But when I arrived, the conversation went in an unexpected direction. Layla was there, sitting across from my parents, her face pale and tear-streaked. She had already told them what had happened, and they weren't angry. They were sympathetic. "Married couples go through rough patches, son," my father said. "You need to work through this. Don't let a mistake destroy what you have." I was dumbfounded. A mistake? This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal. She had kissed him. She had lied to me. I tried to explain, but my father kept repeating the same thing, as if he didn't understand what I was going through. I shouted, my voice breaking. "She cheated on me. How can you tell me to forgive her?" But my mother, ever the peacemaker, wasn't helping either. She called me the next day saying, "It's not as bad as you think. She didn't have a real relationship with him. She's really sorry. You should forgive her." I couldn't believe it. They were on her side. The people who were supposed to stand by me, to understand my pain, were telling me to let it go. But I couldn't. I was devastated. The one place I thought I could find comfort, the one place I thought I could escape to, was now just another reminder that even my own family didn't truly understand my pain. Days passed, but the pain didn't go away. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Layla, calling, begging, crying. She wanted a second chance. She needed me to forgive her. I wanted to pick up the phone and tell her I still loved her. I wanted to believe that we could fix this. But I couldn't. Not anymore. The trust was broken. The love I had for her had been shattered. I couldn't escape the thought of her kissing him, of her lying to me. It haunted me. So, when a mutual friend reached out telling me that Layla was willing to sign the divorce papers if I met with her, I reluctantly agreed. Didn't expect anything from this meeting. I was just tired of the constant back and forth. I needed closure. The meeting was awkward. Layla was crying, her eyes red from sleepless nights. She started speaking in halting sentences, apologizing for what had happened. She told me it wasn't what I thought. "We didn't sleep together," she said. "It was just a kiss. Just one kiss." I felt nothing. I had heard the excuses before. I didn't care about the details. All I knew was that she had betrayed me, and that was enough. "I can't trust you anymore," I said flatly, the coldness in my voice cutting through the tension. "Even if I gave you another chance, it would never be the same. I can't go back to that kind of relationship." She begged me for a second chance, but I refused. I couldn't go back to someone who had broken my heart so completely. I asked her to sign the divorce papers. She did. The days that followed were tough. My father disowned me, telling me he would give my inheritance to my sister. At first I was hurt, but the truth was, I didn't care about the money. I had made my peace with my decision. My sister, who had always been there for me, understood everything. She didn't care about the family wealth. What mattered was supporting me through this mess. As for Layla, I knew she was suffering. But I couldn't help her. I couldn't be the one to comfort her. The person I thought I knew, the woman I loved, was gone. Then Yusuf came to see me. He showed up at my office, looking smug and apologetic at the same time. He thought he could make it right, but I wasn't in the mood for forgiveness. When he began bad-mouthing both me and Layla, something inside me snapped. I stood up, walked over to him, and punched him in the face. It was a moment of pure rage, but in that moment, it felt like justice. I didn't care if it was wrong. I didn't care about the consequences. He left, humiliated, and I didn't think about him again. But in the back of my mind, I knew he had been a part of my pain. And somehow, that punch had made things feel just a little bit better. Months have passed since the divorce. Layla and I are no longer married, and I am finally starting to heal. The wounds are still fresh, but the pain is lessening with time. My sister has been my greatest support. My parents are slowly coming to terms with my decisions, though my relationship with them will never be the same. I've learned to stand up for myself, to put my happiness first. And though it's not easy, I'm moving forward. One day at a time. Trust is everything. Once it's gone, nothing can replace it. No matter how much you love someone, once they betray you, that love fades. I've learned that sometimes the hardest thing to do is let go. But in the end, it's the only thing that allows you to heal. Have you ever experienced betrayal in a relationship? How did you move on? Share your story in the comments below. If you found this story relatable, give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Together, we'll navigate life's hardest challenges.